The blast from Vincent's plasma rifle vaporized Craxon's head in a flash of searing light. Vincent lowered his weapon and stared at the charred remains of his Nasat handler, the alien's body still twitching on the floor of the compound's command center. Vincent had killed before. He was a killer, after all, bred and conditioned to be humanity's ultimate weapon against the ruthless Nasat invaders. But this was different. This time, he wasn't just fighting for survival. He was fighting for the truth. Moments earlier, Vincent had stumbled upon a secret that would change everything. While infiltrating a heavily fortified Nasat base on a covert mission, he discovered classified communiques detailing the enemy's ultimate plan, a doomsday device capable of annihilating Earth and wiping out humanity in a single blow. But before he could transmit the intel back to human command, Craxon confronted him with a shocking revelation, that the killers were never meant to protect humanity, but to serve as disposable tools for the Nasat's galactic domination. Now, with the fate of his species hanging in the balance, Vincent knew what he had to do. He fought his way out of the compound, barely escaping with his life and the crucial information about the alien weapon. But in doing so, he had made himself a traitor to the Nasat and a fugitive from the very humans he had sworn to defend. Time was running out. The doomsday device was nearing completion, and the future of humanity rested on Vincent's genetically enhanced shoulders. He knew that he couldn't trust anyone, not the Nasat, not the human authorities who still viewed the killers with suspicion and fear. His only hope was to find a way to rally his fellow super soldiers and mount a desperate mission to destroy the alien weapon before it was too late. In a galaxy consumed by war, where the lines between friend and foe had long since blurred, Vincent realized that he and his kind might be humanity's last hope for survival. The killer humans, once feared and reviled, were now the only ones who could save the day and the future of their species. Vincent moved through the shadows of the grimy neon-lit streets, his enhanced senses on high alert for any sign of pursuers. The weight of his plasma rifle was a familiar comfort against his back, but he knew that firepower alone wouldn't be enough to stop the Nasat's doomsday plan. He needed help, and there was only one place he could turn. He found Samir in a dingy bar on the outskirts of the colony, nursing a glowing blue drink and a haunted look in his eyes. The sniper barely glanced up as Vincent slid into the booth across from him. "I know why you're here," Samir said, his voice flat. "And the answer is no. I'm done fighting for causes that only lead to more death." Vincent leaned forward, his gaze intense. "This isn't about causes, Samir. It's about survival. The Nasat have a weapon that could wipe out humanity, and we're the only ones who can stop it." He laid out the truth, the words tumbling out in a low, urgent stream. The doomsday device, the Nasat's betrayal, the desperate need for the killers to unite one last time. As he spoke, he could see the change in Samir's eyes, the flicker of anger, the slow burn of purpose. "All right," Samir said at last, draining his drink. "I'm in, but we'll need the others." Their first stop was the lawless expanse of Starfall Station, a warren of vice and violence where Jax had carved out his niche. They found him in a back room, haggling over a crate of stolen tech with a pair of armed Krelax mercenaries. Vincent and Samir burst in, weapons drawn, and the Krelax fell in a hail of plasma fire before they could even reach for their guns. Jax stared at them with wide eyes, then slowly shook his head. "I should have known you two would show up eventually. This is about the Nasat, isn't it?" Before they could respond, the room shuddered with the force of an explosion. Alarms blared and the stench of smoke filled the air, and suddenly there were Nasat troopers flooding into the room, their plasma rifles spitting death. But they were no match for the killers. Vincent, Samir, and Jax tore through the Nasat ranks like a hurricane of violence, their enhanced reflexes and sheer ferocity unbeatable at close quarters. When the smoke cleared, the troopers lay dead, and the killers were bruised but unbroken. "Guess I can't just hide from this war anymore," Jax said, holstering his pistol. "If you're going after that doomsday device, you'll need me to crack its systems. I'm in." One by one, they gathered the team. Nara was the last and most challenging, embedded deep in the heart of human military command. Extracting her without blowing her cover would take every ounce of their skill. They crept through air ducts and maintenance shafts, Vincent guiding them with the bone-deep knowledge of the base's layout that had been drilled into him during his training. When they dropped into Nara's quarters, she had a plasma pistol leveled at Vincent's head before he could even blink. Recognition flashed in her eyes, and she lowered the weapon slowly. "Vincent, what are you doing here?" He told her everything, the words spilling out in a tense flood. Her face hardened as he spoke of the Nasat's plot. But when he mentioned the doomsday weapon, something in her expression shifted. "It's worse than you think," she said quietly. "The weapon is only the beginning. The Nasat are preparing for an all-out assault on Earth, to wipe humanity from the stars. I've seen the evidence." A grim silence settled over the room as the weight of her words sank in. They were no longer just fighting for their lives or their freedom. They were fighting for the very future of their species. "We'll stop them," Vincent said, his voice hard with willpower. "We have to, regardless of the cost." But as they slipped out into the night, the enormity of their task loomed over them. They were 4 lone soldiers against the might of an alien empire, with the fate of billions hanging in the balance. They had their skills, their enhancements, and each other. But would it be enough? Only time would tell, and time was rapidly running out. The killer's stolen ship groaned as Vincent guided it through the treacherous asteroid field, marking the edge of frontier space. Jagged rocks tumbled past, some barely missing their hull. "Shields at 30%, Jax called from the engineering station. "One more hit and we're space dust." Vincent's enhanced reflexes were pushed to their limit as he navigated the deadly obstacle course. A massive asteroid loomed ahead, blocking their path. "Brace for impact," he shouted, yanking the controls hard to port. The ship shuddered as its belly scraped against the asteroid's surface. Alarms blared and sparks showered from damaged consoles. "We're clear," Samir announced, his eyes fixed on the sensor readouts. "Wait, I'm picking up a ship on an intercept course." A sleek frigate emerged from the asteroid field, its weapons trained on their battered vessel. The comm crackled to life with a gruff voice. "Unidentified ship, this is Commander Alec Ryder of the Frontier Militia. State your business or be destroyed." Vincent exchanged glances with his team. This was the moment of truth. "Commander Ryder," he replied, keeping his voice steady. "I'm Vincent, leader of a rogue killer unit. We've come seeking aid against a Nasat threat that endangers all humanity." Silence stretched for long seconds. Then, "Killers, you've got some nerve coming to frontier space. Give me one reason not to blast you out of the sky." Vincent took a deep breath. "Because in less than a month, the Nasat will deploy a weapon capable of annihilating Earth and every human colony. We have proof." Another pause. "Dock with us, but any false moves and you're dead." The killer's ship limped into the frigate's hangar bay. As they disembarked, they found themselves surrounded by a squad of hard-faced militia troops, weapons trained on their every movement. Commander Ryder stepped forward, his scarred face a mask of suspicion. "Let's see this proof of yours." Vincent nodded to Nara, who produced a data cube. "Everything we've uncovered about the Nasat plan is here. We're prepared to verify it however you see fit." Ryder's eyes narrowed as he examined the cube. "If this checks out, you may have just changed the course of history, but don't think for a second that means I trust you." He gestured to his troops. "Take them to the brig while we analyze this data. We'll decide their fate once we know if they're telling the truth." As they were led away, Vincent caught snippets of alarmed conversation among the militia crew. Word of the killer's arrival was spreading fast. Hours later, the cell door slid open. Ryder stood there, his expression grim. "Your story checks out. The council's agreed to hear you out." He fixed Vincent with a hard stare. "But I'm warning you, one wrong move and you'll wish the Nasat had gotten to you first." The killers were escorted through winding corridors to a vast chamber. Dozens of eyes turned to them, some curious, others hostile. At the center, a woman with close-cropped gray hair and the bearing of a veteran officer rose to address them. "I am Admiral Rena Solari," she announced, her voice carrying easily through the chamber. "You claim to have information vital to humanity's survival. Speak." Vincent stepped forward, acutely aware of the tension in the room. He began to lay out the Nasat's plans. the true purpose behind the killer program, and the looming threat of the doomsday weapon. As he spoke, he could see the shock and anger rippling through the assembled leaders. "Even if what you say is true," one grizzled man interrupted, "why should we risk our necks for Earth? They abandoned us out here." Murmurs of agreement rose from several corners of the chamber. Vincent opened his mouth to respond, but before he could speak, alarms began to blare throughout the base. Commander Ryder burst into the room, his face ashen. "Nasat warships just dropped out of hyperspace. They've found us." The chamber erupted into chaos. Admiral Solari's voice cut through the din. "To your stations! This is not a drill!" She turned to Vincent, her eyes blazing. "It seems your presence has brought the fight to our doorstep. Now's your chance to prove your worth, killer." Vincent nodded grimly. "We'll do whatever it takes to defend this base." As they raced to join the defense, Vincent knew that the real battle was only beginning. The fate of humanity would be decided in the coming days, and the killers would be at the heart of it all. The Nasat warships emerged from hyperspace like a swarm of giant metallic insects, their sleek hulls gleaming in the starlight. Alarms blared throughout the frontier base as the first salvos of energy weapons slammed into the defensive shields. Vincent sprinted toward the hangar bay, his enhanced muscles propelling him at inhuman speeds. He vaulted over a stack of crates and skidded to a halt beside a squadron of militia fighters. "I'm taking point," he announced, climbing into the nearest cockpit. The militia pilots exchanged uneasy glances, but there was no time for debate. As Vincent's fighter screamed out of the launch tube, the sky above the base erupted into chaos. Streams of laser fire crisscrossed the atmosphere, while swarms of Nasat drones dive-bombed the surface defenses. Vincent's enhanced reflexes kicked in, his hands a blur on the controls as he wove through the maelstrom. "Jax, Samir," he barked into the comm, "take a strike team and hit their gunships. Nara, coordinate our counteroffensive from the command center." Acknowledgements crackled over the channel as Vincent barrel-rolled to avoid a burst of plasma fire. He lined up a shot on an incoming drone and squeezed the trigger, watching with grim satisfaction as it exploded into a fireball. On the ground, Jax and Samir led a group of militia commandos toward the Nasat landing zone. They moved like shadows through the chaos, their killer training allowing them to slip past enemy patrols undetected. "There," Samir whispered, pointing to a massive Nasat gunship. Its engines thrummed as it prepared for takeoff. Jax nodded, his fingers dancing over a holo display. "I can hack their systems, but we'll need to get closer." They crept forward, using the wreckage of downed fighters as cover. When they reached the gunship's landing struts, Jax produced a device no larger than his palm and attached it to the hull. 30 seconds, he muttered. The air around them filled with the whine of incoming drones. Samir's rifle snapped up, and he fired with inhuman precision, dropping targets faster than the eye could follow. "Done," Jax announced. "Let's move." As they retreated, the gunship's engines sputtered and died. Alarms blared from within as its systems went haywire, rendering it useless. In the base's command center, Nara's fingers flew over holographic displays as she coordinated the frontier's defenses. Her years as a deep-cover operative had honed her ability to process vast amounts of information, allowing her to spot patterns in the Nasat assault. "Concentrate fire on Grid 7 Alpha," she ordered. "There's a weak point in their formation." A barrage of missiles streaked from the base's launch tubes, punching through the Nasat line and scattering their fighters. For a moment, it seemed the tide was turning. Then a massive energy signature lit up the sensors. "New contact!" a technician shouted. "It's their command ship!" The Nasat flagship emerged from the clouds like a leviathan, dwarfing the other vessels. Its weapons began to glow with building power. "All units, evasive maneuvers!" Nara yelled. The command ship unleashed a devastating barrage, shredding through the frontier's weakened shields. Explosions rocked the base as buildings crumbled under the assault. In the sky above, Vincent pushed his fighter to its limits, leading a desperate attack run on the Nasat behemoth. Missiles streaked from his wings, joined by salvos from the surviving militia squadrons. The command ship's hull buckled under the onslaught, Secondary explosions rippled along its length as its reactor went critical. With a silent flash that lit up the atmosphere, the massive vessel split apart. A cheer went up from the frontier forces as the remaining Nasat ships, suddenly leaderless, began to retreat. But the victory was bittersweet. The base lay in ruins, and the cost in lives had been staggering. Hours later, Admiral Solari surveyed the aftermath from the battered command center. Her face was grim as she turned to Vincent and his team. "You've proven your worth today," she said, "but this was just the beginning. We need to take the fight to them." Vincent nodded. "We have the location of their primary shipyard. If we can destroy it, we might stand a chance." Solari's eyes narrowed. "It's deep in Nasat territory, a suicide mission." "Maybe," Vincent replied, "but it's our only shot." The Admiral was silent for a long moment. Then she straightened, decision made. "I'll give you every ship we can spare," she said. "When do we leave?" Vincent looked at his team, seeing the same willpower mirrored in their eyes. "As soon as the fleet is ready," he answered. "We have a long journey ahead." The human armada dropped out of hyperspace, the Nasat shipyard looming before them like a monstrous metal spider. Vincent's eyes narrowed as he took in the sprawling complex, its spindly arms reaching out into the void. "All ships, engage attack formation," Admiral Solari's voice crackled over the comm. "Killers, you have point." Vincent's fighter screamed forward, leading the vanguard. Suddenly, the space around them erupted with swarms of alien drones, their plasma weapons painting the darkness with deadly light. "Evasive maneuvers," Vincent barked, his enhanced reflexes allowing him to dance between volleys of enemy fire. His squad followed suit, weaving an intricate pattern through the chaos. Jax's voice cut through the din. "I've got an idea. Cover me." A stolen Nasat ship broke formation, accelerating towards the shipyard's defensive grid. Vincent watched in awe as Jax piloted the alien vessel with inhuman precision, dodging point defense fire. "Jax, what are you—" Vincent's question was cut short as the Nasat ship slammed into the energy barrier protecting the shipyard. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a silent flash, a section of the shield collapsed. "We're through," Samir shouted. "All units, push forward." The human fleet surged into the gap, weapons blazing. Vincent led his fighter wing in a series of strafing runs, targeting the shipyard's outer defenses. On a neighboring ship, Samir's enhanced vision allowed him to pick out weak points in the Nasat fortifications. One by one, he disabled the massive defense cannons with pinpoint shots. As they pushed deeper into the complex, resistance stiffened. Phalanxes of Nasat warriors and hulking exoskeletons poured from airlocks and hangars, their weapons cutting swathes through the human assault teams. "We're pinned down," a frontier soldier's panicked voice echoed over the comm. "We can't break through." "I've got this," Nara's cool reply came. "Vincent, I need a distraction." Vincent nodded, though she couldn't see him. "You heard her. All fighters. Focus fire on the main hangar. Give them something to look at." As his squadron unleashed a barrage of missiles, Vincent caught a glimpse of Nara's sleek infiltration craft slipping through the chaos. Minutes later, alarms blared throughout the shipyard as key systems began to fail. "Construction facilities sabotaged," Nara reported. "Their reinforcements are cut off." Vincent allowed himself a grim smile as he banked his fighter towards the command hub. Victory seemed within reach until a familiar voice froze him in his tracks. "Well done, Vincent. I always knew you were my finest creation." Craxon, his former handler, the Nasat who had molded him into a living weapon. Vincent's fighter touched down in a deserted hangar. As he climbed out, Craxon stepped from the shadows, his alien features twisting into what passed for a smile. "You've come so far," Craxon said, his voice a sibilant hiss. "But did you really think you could defeat us?" Vincent's enhanced muscles tensed as he circled his former mentor. "You underestimated us. That was your first mistake." Craxon lunged, his clawed hands slashing through the air. Vincent ducked and weaved, muscle memory from countless training sessions guiding his movements. They traded blows at superhuman speed, each anticipating the other's tactics. For a moment, Craxon gained the upper hand, pinning Vincent against a bulkhead. "You were never meant to be more than a tool," he snarled. Vincent's eyes narrowed. "You're right. I'm not your tool anymore." With a burst of strength, he broke free, delivering a crushing blow to Craxon's midsection. The Nasat commander crumpled, green ichor oozing from his wounds. Vincent stood over his fallen mentor, fist raised for a killing blow. But something held him back. With a growl of frustration, he turned away, leaving Craxon broken but alive. "Vincent, we've secured the control hub." Nara's voice came over his comm. "But you need to see this." Minutes later, Vincent stared at the holographic display, his blood running cold. The coordinates they'd fought so hard to obtain led to nothing but a decoy. "It was never about the weapon," Samir said, his voice hollow. "Look." Another set of coordinates flickered to life. Earth, and surrounding it, a massive Nasat carrier fleet poised to strike. Vincent's expression resolute. "We need to move, now." As they raced back to their ships, alarms blared throughout the complex. The shipyard was lost, but the true battle was just beginning. "All ships, form up on me," Vincent ordered as they cleared the hangar. "We've got a long way to go and not much time to get there." The battered human fleet accelerated away from the ruined shipyard, leaving destruction in their wake. But as they set course for Earth, Vincent couldn't shake the feeling that the worst was yet to come. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace near Earth, engines flaring as they decelerated. Vincent's eyes widened at the sight before them. A massive Nasat carrier armada loomed over the blue-green orb of humanity's homeworld. "We're too late," Samir breathed, his enhanced vision picking out details of the alien ships. Vincent gritted his teeth. "No, we still have a chance. All ships prepare for assault. We'll punch through their lines and—" His orders were cut short as proximity alarms blared. A Nasat flagship materialized beside them, dwarfing their vessels. "Evasive maneuvers," Vincent shouted, but it was too late. Tractor beams lashed out, ensnaring their ships. With sickening lurches, they were pulled into the flagship's cavernous hangar bay. The moment their ships touched down, the hangar erupted into chaos. Waves of cybernetically augmented monstrosities poured from access hatches. The killhounds. "What the hell are those things?" Jax yelled, unloading his rifle into the oncoming horde. The bullets tore through flesh and metal alike, but the creatures barely slowed. Vincent's blood ran cold as he caught glimpses of familiar faces among the abominations. "They're us," he whispered. Nara grabbed his arm. "Vincent, focus! We need to get to the bridge." They fought their way through corridors slick with blood and oil, the killhounds relentless in their pursuit. Samir's precision shots bought them precious seconds, while Jax attempted to hack into the ship's systems. "It's no use," Jax growled in frustration. "They've locked me out completely." As they neared the bridge, Vincent found himself face to face with a killhound that wore his own features, twisted into a hateful snarl. He hesitated, his pistol wavering. Nara's voice cut through his shock. "Vincent, listen to me. They still have pieces of who they were. Their memories, their humanity. It's still in there, buried beneath the programming." Vincent's mind raced. In a bold strategy, he holstered his weapon and reached out, establishing a neural link with the creature before him. Images flashed through his consciousness. Pain, fear, flashes of forgotten identities. He pushed deeper, forcing himself to relive the agonizing memories of his own conditioning. The killhound before him convulsed, letting out an inhuman shriek. Around them, other hounds began to twitch and spasm, turning on each other in a frenzy of confusion and self-destruction. "Now's our chance!" Vincent shouted. They sprinted for the bridge, bursting through the doors to find it empty, save for a holographic projection of Craxon. "Well done, Vincent," the Nasat's voice dripped with sarcasm. "You've made it this far, but I'm afraid your journey ends here." Vincent's hands flew over the control panels, trying to gain access to the ship's weapons. "It's over, Craxon. We've taken your flagship." Craxon's laughter filled the room. "Oh, but you haven't. You see, there's one last failsafe, the command codes for the entire armada, and they're locked inside your own mind, Vincent, a final gift from your creators." The color drained from Vincent's face as the implications sank in. He could feel the others staring at him, their expressions a mix of shock and suspicion. Craxon's hologram leaned forward, its eyes glittering with malice. "So what will it be, Vincent? Will you betray your own kind to stop us? Or will you watch as we reduce your precious Earth to ashes?" Vincent's mind reeled. He looked from the looming Nasat armada to his team, then back to the hologram of his former handler. The weight of billions of lives pressed down upon him as he grappled with an impossible choice. Vincent's eyes darted between the hologram of Craxon and the looming Nasat armada visible through the bridge viewport. His enhanced mind raced, processing the impossible choice before him. "You're lying," he spat at Craxon. "There are no codes." The Nasat's hologram flickered. "Search your memories, Vincent. You know it's true." Vincent's fists, tight as buried fragments, surfaced. Sterile labs, searing pain, voices chanting alien syllables. He stumbled, gripping the console for support. Nara caught his arm. "Vincent, whatever's in your head, we can't let them use it. Earth has to survive." Jax's fingers flew over a nearby terminal. 30 seconds until their invasion sequence activates. We're out of options." Vincent closed his eyes, diving deep into the recesses of his fractured psyche. The buried codes pulsed at the edges of his consciousness, a siren song of surrender. For a moment he teetered on the precipice of giving in. Then an image flashed before him, a younger version of himself, facing Craxon in a cold Nasat laboratory. The alien's words echoed, "Obey, and your pain will end." Vincent's eyes snapped open. "No," he growled. "I won't be your puppet again." He spun to face his team. "Jax, can you access the warp drive controls?" Jax's brow furrowed. "Yeah, but—" "Overload it," Vincent ordered. "Create a shockwave big enough to cripple the entire fleet." Samir's enhanced vision scanned the readouts. The yield would be catastrophic. We'd be annihilating their entire force. "And ourselves with it," Nara added, her voice tight. Vincent met each of their gazes. "It's the only way to stop them before they reach Earth. But I won't force this choice on any of you." Jax's hands hovered over the controls. "After everything we've done, maybe this is how we make it right." Samir nodded grimly. "I'm in." Nara stepped back, shaking her head. "I can't, not like this." "Then go," Vincent said softly. "Take a fighter and get clear. We'll buy you as much time as we can." As Nara sprinted from the bridge, Jax's fingers danced across the console. Warning klaxons blared throughout the ship. "Warp core overload initiated," he announced. 2 minutes until critical mass. Craxon's hologram sputtered. "Vincent, you can't—" Vincent severed the transmission with a swipe of his hand. Through the viewport, he watched Nara's fighters streaking away from the doomed flagship. The deck began to vibrate as the warp core's energy built to impossible levels. Jax and Samir took up positions on either side of Vincent, a final act of solidarity. "It's been an honor," Samir said quietly. Vincent nodded, his gaze fixed on the approaching Nasat armada. As the warp core reached critical mass, a blinding light engulfed the bridge. In that moment of searing brightness, Vincent allowed himself a fleeting hope that whatever came next, it would be on his own terms. The shockwave tore through space, ripping apart the Nasat fleet in a silent cataclysm of light and fury. Earth hung in the distance, scarred but intact, saved from annihilation by the decisive actions of a band of former assassins. In the aftermath, questions of morality and identity would plague survivors on both sides. But for now, as the echoes of destruction faded, an uneasy silence settled over the stars. The shockwave dissipated, leaving behind a graveyard of twisted metal and crystallized debris where the Nasat fleet once loomed. Nara's fighter drifted among the wreckage, its sensors struggling to process the devastation. She swallowed hard, fighting back the sting of tears as she contemplated the cost of their victory. Her comm crackled to life. "Nara, do you copy?" Admiral Solari's voice cut through the static. "Return to base immediately. We need to contain this situation." Weeks passed in a blur of debriefings and heated arguments. The frontier colonies buzzed with conflicting narratives, some hailing the killers as saviors, others denouncing them as genocidal monsters. Vincent watched the debates rage from the confines of a remote outpost, his enhanced hearing picking up every whispered accusation. "We should be out there," Jax growled, pacing the cramped common area. "Setting the record straight." Samir shook his head. "And risk undoing the fragile peace Solari's brokered? We're lucky to have sanctuary at all." Vincent stared out the viewport, his reflection ghostly in the reinforced glass. Maybe this is what we deserve. A proximity alert jolted them from their brooding. A battered freighter limped into view, its hull scarred by weapons fire. Vincent's enhanced vision caught the telltale signs of Nasat energy signatures. "Impossible," he breathed. The freighter's captain, face haggard with fear, appeared on the main screen. "Please, you have to help us. Craxon, he's back. Entire settlements wiped out. Says he won't stop until—" Static consumed the transmission as another volley of plasma fire tore through the ship's stern. Jax's fingers flew across the sensor console. "Multiple contacts incoming. Nasat attack squadrons." Vincent's lips pursed. "Looks like our retirement's been cut short." As alarms blared throughout the outpost, Vincent felt a familiar clarity descend. Whatever doubts plagued him moments ago evaporated in the face of imminent threat. "Jax, what's our defensive capability?" "Limited, but—" Jax's eyes lit up with a dangerous gleam. "I might have an idea. Those wrecked Nasat ships we passed on the way here. If we can get aboard, tap into their AI cores. We could turn their own tech against them," Samir finished, nodding grimly. Vincent weighed the risks. It was an audacious attempt, but with Craxon on the warpath, they were out of options. "Do it," he ordered. "I'll clear it with Solari. Nara?" He hesitated, unsure if their fractured bond could withstand another crisis. Nara met his gaze, her expression resolute. "I'm in. Whatever it takes." As they geared up for the perilous mission ahead, Vincent allowed himself a moment of grim satisfaction. They'd been forged as weapons, yes, but now they would wield themselves. Vincent's satisfaction was short-lived. As they prepared to infiltrate the wrecked Nasat ships, proximity alarms blared once more. This time, the threat wasn't Nasat, it was human. "Multiple Earth Strike Force signatures detected," Samir reported, his enhanced vision scanning the readouts. "Commander Fallon's flagship is among them." Vincent's mind focused. "How long?" "Minutes at most," Jax replied, his fingers flying over the console. "They're moving fast, Vincent. Too fast." Before Vincent could formulate a plan, the outpost shuddered under the impact of plasma fire. Through the viewport, he watched as Earth Strike Force vessels swarmed the debris field, methodically destroying any intact Nasat technology. "They're not here for us," Nara realized, her voice tight. "They're here to clean up the mess." Vincent nodded grimly. "And we're part of that mess." The comm system crackled to life, Admiral Solari's face appearing on the main screen. His expression was a mix of regret and steely dedication. "Vincent, I'm sorry. Fallon's overruled me. You're to stand down and prepare for immediate extraction." "Extraction?" Jack spat. "You mean execution?" Solari's silence was damning. Vincent cut the transmission. "Options?" Samir's eyes narrowed. "The kill hounds. If we can access their neural network—" "No," Nara interjected. "We can't unleash that kind of chaos." But it was too late. Jax had already begun the process, his cybernetic implants interfacing with the outpost systems. "I've found them," he announced, a dangerous gleam in his eye. "Scattered across the frontier. Hiding. Waiting." Vincent felt a chill run down his spine. "Jax, what have you done?" The answer came in a cacophony of bestial screams. Through the viewport, Vincent watched as twisted figures emerged from the wreckage of Nasat ships. The kill hounds, half-human, half-machine monstrosities, tore into the Earth Strike Force with savage efficiency. Fallon's ships, caught off guard, broke formation. Some retreated, while others engaged the kill hounds in desperate close-quarters combat. "We have to stop this," Nara pleaded, but Vincent could see the cold calculation in Jax and Samir's eyes. They saw an opportunity, a weapon to be wielded against all who threatened them. The outpost rocked again, this time from a different energy signature. A Nasat cruiser decloaked, its weapons trained on both human and killhound alike. "Kraxon," Vincent breathed, recognizing the ship's design. The Nasat's face appeared on the screen, his alien features twisted in a mockery of a smile. "My wayward creations," he purred. "How fitting to find you all together at the end." Vincent watched in horror as Kraxon's ship unleashed a barrage of energy pulses. But instead of destroying the killhounds, the pulses seemed to paralyze them. One by one, the monstrosities went rigid, their eyes glazing over. "What have you done?" Vincent demanded. Kraxon's laughter filled the command center. "Merely reclaiming what's mine. Did you think I'd leave such valuable assets without a failsafe?" As if to punctuate his words, the killhounds turned as one, their focus shifting to the nearby human colonies. Vincent could only watch as they launched themselves at the defenseless outposts, tearing through hulls and life support systems with mechanical precision. "Stop this!" Nara screamed, but Kraxon had already cut the transmission. Vincent's mind raced. They had unleashed this chaos, and now billions of lives hung in the balance. He turned to his team, seeing the weight of their actions reflected in their eyes. "Jax," he said, his voice steady despite the turmoil within. "Can you get us onto Kraxon's ship?" Jax nodded, already plotting a course through the debris field. "Samir, prep our gear. We're going in hot." As they prepared for the desperate assault, Vincent caught Nara's gaze. The unspoken question hung between them. How far were they willing to go to undo their mistakes? The answer, Vincent realized, would determine not just their fate, but the fate of the entire frontier. The Nasat cruiser loomed before them, a twisted behemoth of alien metal and pulsing energy. Vincent's muscles tensed as he led the charge through the airlock, Jax and Samir flanking him. The ship's corridors writhed with biomechanical tendrils, pulsing in eerie synchronicity. "Life signs," Vincent whispered, his enhanced senses straining against the ship's alien architecture. Samir's eyes flashed with data. "Multiple signatures, Kraxon's on the bridge." They moved swiftly, years of shared combat experience guiding their movements. As they neared the command center, a piercing shriek filled the air. Killhounds burst from concealed chambers, their cybernetic limbs whirring as they charged. "Go!" Samir shouted, laying down suppressing fire. "I'll hold them off!" Vincent hesitated for a split second before nodding grimly. He and Jax pushed forward, the sounds of Samir's last stand fading behind them. The bridge doors hissed open. Kraxon stood at the helm, his elongated fingers dancing across holographic interfaces. "Ah, my wayward creations," he purred. "Come to die with dignity?" Vincent's response was a hail of gunfire, but Kraxon's personal shields flickered to life. The Nasat's laughter filled the chamber as he activated a series of controls. Through the view screen, Vincent watched in horror as the killhounds swarming the nearby colonies suddenly froze, then redirected their fury towards Earth's defenders. "Stop this!" Vincent roared, charging forward. Kraxon met him with inhuman strength, their forms blurring as they grappled. Jax worked furiously at a nearby console, his cybernetic implants interfacing with the alien tech. "I can't shut it down," he called out, frustration evident in his voice. "But maybe I can—" His words cut off in a scream as Kraxon's failsafe protocols activated, sending waves of agony through Jax's neural network. Vincent watched in horror as his friend collapsed, twitching uncontrollably. With a surge of desperate strength, Vincent broke free from Kraxon's grasp. He lunged for the main control panel, his enhanced reflexes guiding his movements. In one fluid motion, he overloaded the ship's power core. Alarms blared as the cruiser began to shake itself apart. Kraxon's eyes widened in disbelief. "You fool! You'll kill us all!" Vincent scooped up Jax's unconscious form, his voice cold. "Better that than let you win." He ran, the ship disintegrating around him. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut, nearly crushing him as he pushed through. With a final burst of speed, he hurled himself and Jax through the airlock, tumbling into the void of space. As Craxon's stronghold erupted in a spectacular explosion behind them, Vincent activated his suit's distress beacon. His enhanced vision caught sight of Admiral Solari's reinforcements touching down nearby. He clutched Jax tighter, steeling himself for whatever came next.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.